Have you ever felt the weight of something you couldn't name, like carrying an invisible burden that surfaces in unexpected moments? Maybe it's that uneasy twinge of guilt when someone compliments you, or a restless feeling before you sleep, a silent thought whispering, "Am I really okay?" These subtle signals often come from a deeper place we rarely confront. Today, we're taking a journey into one of Carl Jung's most illuminating ideas, the shadow, to understand how hidden parts of us influence our lives more than we realize. Before we dive into that, if you're new here or have been curious about psychology and self-growth, be sure to subscribe. This channel is all about exploring our inner world, and I'd love for you to join this community of truth seekers. Have you noticed how easy it is to show the world only our best face, the polite, responsible, friendly version of ourselves, while hiding away the messy, uncomfortable aspects that might not be so appealing? Sometimes we brush off anger by masking it as sarcasm, or bury regret under a constant need to be busy. We do our best to avoid the dreaded confrontation with those feelings we label bad or unacceptable. The problem is, what we avoid doesn't vanish. Instead, it accumulates in a hidden reservoir that can weigh us down. These secret burdens warp how we see ourselves and others. We might find ourselves lashing out at a loved one for no reason, or constantly feeling guilty, without understanding why. Yet these moments are not really random. They're signs that something inside is crying out for recognition and healing. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, offered a groundbreaking framework to understand this very dilemma. Among his many concepts, such as the persona, the social mask we wear, and the process of individuation, our journey toward wholeness, one idea stands out when it comes to revealing the truths we hide: the shadow. The shadow represents all the parts of ourselves we suppress, deny, or simply remain unaware of because they seem unacceptable or threatening to our self-image. When you bring the shadow to light, you uncover a more complete and surprisingly freeing version of who you are. In today's talk, we'll explore how the shadow influences our everyday choices, relationships, and sense of self, and how owning it can transform burdens into strengths. Let's begin by looking closely at how the shadow forms and why it holds such power. Imagine yourself as a child naturally expressing everything you felt: joy, sadness, anger, excitement, without hesitation. Over time, however, you received messages from family, friends, or society that certain behaviors were unacceptable. Maybe you were told, "Don't be angry," or "Don't cry," or "Stop being so sensitive." Bit by bit, you learn to hide those emotions and traits that triggered disapproval. It's like packing unwanted items into a box labeled "Not Allowed" and shoving it into the attic of your mind. Yet an attic stuffed with forgotten possessions doesn't stay silent. Inside, resentment can fester, shame can multiply, and fear can echo. Because we don't openly acknowledge them, these neglected parts become what Jung called our shadow, elements we'd rather not see because they clash with the socially approved image of who we think we should be. This doesn't necessarily mean they're bad traits. Sometimes they're just uncomfortable, like intense vulnerability or a fierce competitiveness we're taught to hide. Over time, the shadow grows like a silent partner that walks beside us everywhere. Even though we try to ignore it, it influences our moods, decisions, and relationships. One immediate way it affects us is through projection. Think of the last time you were inexplicably annoyed by someone. Perhaps a coworker's overly confident manner just got under your skin, or a friend's habit of constantly seeking validation felt suffocating. Often, what irritates us the most in others can be traits we subconsciously dislike or envy in ourselves. We criticize them for being too pushy or too needy, when deep down we might be uncomfortable with our own desire for attention or fear of being overlooked. This aha moment can be tough to accept, who wants to admit they see in others the reflections of what they fear or deny within themselves. But the power of realizing this lies in the choice it offers. We can break the cycle of judging others and start investigating what it is about us that's reacting so strongly. Here's a real-world example to make this clearer. Picture someone who always has to be the nice guy. In social situations, he's jovial, goes along with the group, never complains. But behind closed doors, he often feels unappreciated and seethes with resentment. Then, out of nowhere, he might lash out at a friend for showing the slightest hint of selfishness. The friend is puzzled. Why are you so upset about something so small? But the explosion has little to do with the friend's minor act. It's the nice guy's hidden anger at having suppressed his own needs for so long. By demonizing selfishness in others, he avoids facing his own capacity for assertiveness. If he examined that anger, he might find a part of him that yearns to stand up for himself, ask for what he wants, and not always put others first. Suddenly, what looked like a negative trait might become a healthy drive if brought to light. At this point, if you're finding these insights valuable, share them with a friend or clique that like buttons so more people can discover Jung's work. It's amazing how a bit of awareness can shift how we view ourselves and our connections with others. Let's go deeper into how these hidden parts of us play out in our most intimate relationships. One pattern that often emerges is carrying unspoken baggage that seeps into our interactions. Suppose you've grown up believing you must always remain composed, never emotional. You might unconsciously choose a romantic partner who openly expresses anger or sadness. Part of you is drawn to what you don't feel free to express. However, as time goes on, you might resent them for being too dramatic, even though that was precisely the quality that once attracted you. Unseen forces in our psyche love to create such ironic twists. The shadow craves expression, and sometimes it does so by pulling us toward people who embody it. A second example could be the child who felt overshadowed by a sibling. As an adult, they might become hypercompetitive with friends, always aiming to be the best, yet also criticizing attention seekers. The contradiction arises because they're looking in a mirror but don't realize it. An aha moment here is that your attraction or repulsion to certain people can highlight what lies dormant in you. Are you drawn to partners who are spontaneous while you live by strict routines? You might secretly long to tap into your own spontaneity but feel blocked by anxiety. Are you unnerved by someone's ambition because you were always taught that aiming too high is conceited? Perhaps there's an unfulfilled dream within you that's clamoring to break free. These are the ways our shadow tries to tell us, hey, pay attention. I'm still here. Of course, merely becoming aware of your shadow doesn't magically solve all problems. It's a process of transformation. Jung saw this as part of individuation, becoming a whole person by making the unconscious conscious. The point is not to label your hidden aspects as purely good or bad, but to recognize them as part of your human complexity. One of the biggest revelations in shadow work is that the traits we suppress can actually be sources of tremendous energy, creativity, and depth. Think of someone who was always told they're too emotional. If they keep suppressing those emotions, they might feel disconnected and uninspired. But by allowing that emotional richness to flow, they might discover a powerful ability to empathize, create art, or communicate deeply. It's like discovering a hidden wellspring you never knew existed. So how do we start facing our shadow? One practical approach is journaling. Set aside a few minutes each day to write down moments that triggered strong reactions. Did you feel sudden anger, overwhelming sadness, or an urge to blame someone? Note it down and ask yourself why. This act of reflection can uncover patterns. Another useful technique is to pay attention to repetitive dreams or fantasies. Often, the unconscious mind sneaks hidden truths into our dream symbols. Are you dreaming of being chased or suffocated? Sometimes that symbolizes part of you that you're running from. Are you dreaming of standing alone on a stage with everyone watching? That could reflect a hidden longing for recognition or a hidden fear of exposure. These images can be puzzling, but exploring them can spark profound insights. For a second application, consider safe, supportive environments where you can express emotions you usually bury. That might be therapy, a self-help group, or a creative workshop. In therapy, especially Jungian or depth psychology approaches, you have a guide who helps you decode the messages of your unconscious. By speaking aloud those parts you're ashamed of, you begin to integrate them. You realize they're not monstrous, they're just pieces of you that needed attention. And once integrated, they lose their destructive hold and become a reservoir of wisdom and energy. A third real-world scenario might involve a person who always labeled themselves as logical, priding themselves on rational thinking. But they keep having outbursts of anxiety they can't explain. Gradually, through reflection, they discover a deeply buried fear of failure tied to childhood experiences they never properly addressed. Recognizing this fear doesn't make them less logical, it actually rounds them out. They can be both rational and sensitive. Another example is the workplace scenario. The seemingly mild-mannered employee who finds themselves resentful whenever others get praised, even if they're working hard. They might uncover an old feeling of being overshadowed in the family. Bringing that shadow feeling into awareness can lead to a healthier approach, like learning to advocate for their own accomplishments or setting boundaries on extra tasks. Sometimes we might think, but what if what's in my shadow is truly awful? This fear can be paralyzing. Yet Jung argued that facing these darker aspects is precisely what helps us grow. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It just pushes them to surface in harmful or unconscious ways. Think of it as rummaging through a dusty basement. You might find broken objects, but you might also discover forgotten treasures, qualities you once cherished but lost sight of. If you never explore the basement, it remains a place of mystery and potential chaos. But once you switch on the light, you see what's there, reorganize it, and maybe even renovate the space into something usable and beautiful. As you reflect on these ideas, ask yourself, what traits in others trigger me the most? And is there a part of me that I've been unwilling to see? These questions can open a door to self-awareness. Don't be surprised if the answers are mixed, some negative, some surprisingly positive. The shadow isn't just about bad stuff. It's also about hidden talents, unclaimed ambitions, and passions you suppress to fit in. Realizing that can be a game changer. Suddenly, you see how you've been carrying secret burdens of guilt or shame about qualities that might actually serve a higher purpose if channeled responsibly. Let's use a powerful metaphor to capture this. The shadow can be likened to a heavy suitcase you've been dragging through every stage of life. Each time someone told you, "Don't be that way," or "Stop feeling this," you tossed another item into the suitcase. Over time, it grew heavier, and you forgot what was even inside it. You just felt the strain. Shadow work is the act of opening that suitcase, sorting through the contents, discarding what doesn't serve you and reclaiming what does. It's not about discarding your past or condemning parts of you as unworthy. It's about discovering that some items in that suitcase might be treasures, like an old journal of your raw creativity or a half-finished painting of your deep passions. Integrating your shadow means you no longer fear what's in the suitcase because you've learned its value. It's important to note that shadow integration doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual, often humbling process. You might have moments where you catch a glimpse of a repressed feeling, maybe jealousy or rage, and instinctively pull back thinking, "I can't deal with that. That's not me." But if you persist gently, you'll realize that accepting that feeling doesn't turn you into a monster. It makes you more empathetic, both toward yourself and others. You gain insight into the universality of human emotions, which fosters compassion. And compassion, both inward and outward, can mend relationships and create a richer life experience. As you continue, you might also realize how the persona, the mask you show to the world, shifts slightly. You become more genuine in your interactions, more grounded in your reactions. That's the essence of individuation, gradually unveiling your authentic self and aligning your conscious identity with your deeper, unconscious truths. It doesn't mean you blurt out every thought or share every feeling. It means you stand in your truth rather than hide it. For example, you might find a balance between being caring and being honest. No more forced smile if you're hurting inside. You can voice your needs and set boundaries. Such changes might surprise people who knew you as a certain persona, but those who love you will likely appreciate the deeper authenticity. Now, how to practice shadow integration in daily life. Another practical tip is to notice your self-talk. Do you punish yourself for feeling envy or sadness? Catch yourself mid-thought, "I shouldn't feel this, it's wrong." Then gently reframe, "It's okay that I feel this way. Let me explore where it's coming from." This simple act can reduce shame and open a space for learning. Also, engage in creative outlets, painting, writing stories, dancing, where you can safely experiment with emotions and images that don't fit into your usual routine. Creativity is a playground for the shadow. You might express anger in a painting or heartbreak in a poem, and discover it transforms into a source of deep connection, an insight rather than a negative force. A final reflection point. If there's a quality I consistently admire or resent in others, what might that say about me? Perhaps it indicates an untapped potential. Maybe you admire your friend's courage but dismiss your own bold impulses as reckless. That might be a clue to reclaim some bravery in your life. Or you criticize someone for being too dramatic, while in truth, you crave a more vibrant, expressive way of living. Identifying such patterns can empower you to move from unconscious reaction to conscious choice. Let's summarize and see the bigger picture. We all carry hidden burdens, feelings, urges, or memories we've relegated to the shadows. Jung's concept of the shadow helps us see that what we try to bury ends up dictating our actions from behind the scenes. By shining a light on these hidden parts, we move one step closer to wholeness. We learn that our bad qualities may have a hidden purpose, and our suppressed talents can bring new joy if we only acknowledge them. The truth is, the journey into the shadow is the journey into authenticity. In practical terms, you can start by journaling your triggers, seeking a safe environment to explore uncomfortable emotions, and allowing yourself creative expression. Through this process, you'll discover that the parts of yourself you once rejected have lessons to teach, lessons that enrich your relationships, clarify your goals, and deepen your sense of self. Each aha moment is a small awakening. You recognize that beneath the surface, you hold more potential, more vitality than you ever imagined. And with each step, you become less afraid of who you are and more inclined to stand in your truth without apology. If you found any part of this discussion resonating with you, consider sharing your insights in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your experiences with hidden emotions or surprising discoveries about yourself. Don't hesitate to ask questions or offer your own reflections. It's by sharing that we learn from each other and create a supportive space for exploration. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. By subscribing, you join a community dedicated to self-awareness, healing, and growth. Together, we can unpack those suitcases of hidden burdens and find the treasures within. Remember, our shadow doesn't have to remain a scary, unknown force. It can become a guiding compass toward our truth. Yes, it may reveal uncomfortable parts of ourselves, but it also uncovers our deepest strengths, passions, and potential for compassion. As you walk away from this video, let that realization sink in. There is immense power and relief in illuminating what was once kept in darkness. The journey may be challenging, but it's one of the most rewarding paths you'll ever walk. And on that path, you're never alone. Take a moment tonight, look inward and ask, what hidden aspects of me are ready to be seen? You may be surprised by the honesty and the liberation waiting on the other side.